Welcome to the Scandinavian Mind podcast, our weekly show about how technology is changing the creative industries. Today on the program, the state of electric boating. The electrification at sea is experiencing advancement, although much slower than the car industry. We were recently on the west coast of Sweden to test some new developments in hybrid boating, hosted by Volvo Penta and Groupe Beneteau. And in this episode, we'll share our experiences from that. We'll also talk about some recent news in the boating industry, Polestar and Candela in a new collaboration, why BMW are putting their i3 engines in motorboats, and we'll hear a longer interview with Johan Inden, president of Volvo Penta Marine. My name is Konrad Olsson, editor-in-chief and founder of Scandinavian Mind. And with a comeback on the show, my dear colleague and resident mobility expert, Erik Sedin. How are you, Erik?
Feels great to be back, and finally let's talk some mobility. It was about time. I'm also just came back from Bali for 2 weeks, and I was riding a lot of mopeds over there. So I really I felt like I was mostly on two wheels for that whole trip, driving through the Denpasar traffic and stuff. So I don't know, I'm feeling like I might have to get like a motorcycle license. I just loved it so much. I have to cover all of the mobility spectra, I have to get on the water, do boating, and I have to get motorcycle license.
For sure. And I just relocated to my house in the Stockholm archipelago, so I feel in a marine mood. It's a great setting for this podcast. So, I mean, we've been covering the boating industry and the transformation, specifically, the electrification of motorboats since the first issue of Scandinavian Mind, really. I had an interview with Konrad Bergström, famous entrepreneur, founder of Xshore. In that issue, I think the issue after that, we did the big state of mobility, which we covered quite a lot, or I should say, you covered quite a lot of the innovations in the boating industry. You're covering this or you're doing research on this continuously. What's your sense of where we are right now, Erik?
That's an interesting way to put it of where we are right now, because previously when I'm writing these lists and I'm researching these startups and looking at all these cool 3D concept pictures of all these stuff, it's always like coming in 4 years, coming soon.
Right.
It's always these startup concepts kind of. Now, where we are right now, they're coming along. There are actually ways to get by and get around on water with electricity solely, or through hybrids and stuff. And boating industry is quite far off, lagging behind the car industry by some miles when it comes to electrification. But I'm really excited to see how they're actually starting to come out on market. Like you can actually ride these boats now, and they're mass adopted. Still, like I said, the infrastructure is probably lagging behind way more than it should for it to be completely mass adopted. But still, things are really starting to bubble below the surface, literally.
Yeah, for sure. And I was on the West Coast. I did this interview with Johan Inden from Volvo Penta, and it should be noted what I experienced there was a collaboration between Volvo Penta, which is the manufacturer of engines and steering equipment and that sort of thing, and Groupe Beneteau, which is Europe's, if not the world's, one of the world's biggest manufacturers of motorboats. But what they showed me was a concept of a hybrid motorboat. It ran both on batteries, but also on traditional gasoline. So, I mean, that in itself is a testament to that this is something in development. There's several factors at play here. I mean, the car industry can basically be overturned in just a few years. If everyone just changed their car, in 3 years, we'll see completely new cars on the market. Whereas motorboats, people keep them for a much longer time, and perhaps rightly so,
Yeah,
from a sustainability perspective.
Yeah, and obviously, boating is it's not really to people don't really use them to commute to work or pick your kids up from school. It's leisure. Of course, things will lag behind because of that also, and also how some of these electricity and electrified boats and engines are coming to public transport in large scale. So already implemented. So not only for leisure and small trips with your family to go picnicking, you know.
Let's look at some recent news. You've been covering what's happening on both the from the Nordic perspective with some collaborations with Polestar and Candela, but also developments at BMW. What can you talk about the most recent news?
I've seen two from the last couple of weeks. One, like you said, is Polestar and Candela. I don't know how to pronounce it actually. It's interesting. It seems like Polestar collaborates with any mobility brand in Sweden. You know, if there is one, they want to get in touch and get some kind of collaboration in there. It's quite fun. Um, but yeah, so and also I kind of like that. You know, just this little small thing that I like. You know, Polestar they kind of own a color now. They own that kind of yellow color that you have on the
Mm.
seat belts, and this yellow color is also on the hydrofoils, the wings, because these boats fly on wings. So I think it's cool when a brand of any sort owns a color. It comes out next summer, and there will be a leisure boat in a way, but it's new and it's actually using this boat and the hydrofoils, the motors on the boat, on the hydrofoil wings, are using Polestar's own motors. That's pretty interesting. I think that they're using car motors that can be used also on water. On a similar note, I also read about BMW that you shortly mentioned. BMW has teamed up with the startup Tide, also a German mobility brand, and they launched a boat during Cannes Film Festival in May. That is the same thing. It uses BMW's i3 motors. i3, one of the BMW's first electric cars. Same kind of boat. It uses hydrofoil wings. It floats on top of the surface. Also supposed to be a leisure boat, kind of. And what's interesting about this, I think, is that you're using batteries and motors specifically made for cars on boats as well. I'm only assuming that that means that you can use the same chargers. This infrastructure that's already in place for charging your car should, I'm assuming, be able to work on your boat as well.
Right.
And I think that's where things get interesting, how these kind of intertwines, you know.
Well, this makes for a very interesting parallel to the car industry because how these industries are kind of developing at the same time, but not at the same speed in a way, using some of the same technologies. I mean, this has actually been present in the boat industry for a long time. And, you mentioned Volvo Penta, which we'll hear more about later in the episode. It was a technology company, stems from obviously the car brand Volvo. It's now separate companies, separate entities, but they have uh, two main sectors that they're providing for, which is on land, which is these large scale tractors and sort of work vehicles. That's Volvo Penta on land, and then there's Volvo Penta Marine. So they're also developing these technologies kind of in parallel. And I actually own my motorboat out here in the Stockholm archipelago. Is a 40-year-old Tollare. It has a Volvo Penta engine, and the local engineer that helps fix it every year, he always mutters at me and shakes his head, saying that this is just an old tractor engine.
You should go down to your dock there in your summer house and record how it sounds when it starts for our listeners. So here it comes. You told me before we started recording here at your summer house, you can kind of hear the boats coming from the bay, coming from the marina at that small archipelago island that you live on. But you were away now for in the West Coast archipelago, and you went with a bit of a, not a smoother ride perhaps, but a more quieter route. How was that? How is it being on the water and not hearing anything and actually hearing people talk and
Well, from an experience standpoint, that's the biggest difference between riding a traditional motorboat and an electric one. It's that the electric one is so much more quiet. I mean, when you come up to a certain speed, you kind of have the water gives out a certain amount of noise. But when you're cruising, and specifically in the beginning of the ride, it's just completely quiet. And that, to me, that's the case for hybrids, which what Volvo Penta and Groupe Beneteau are trying to show here, is that maybe we won't go fully electric, immediately. Maybe there is this transition period of doing a hybrid motoring, and there's something really interesting about that from an experience standpoint. One is, what I learned during this day is a large part of the time that people spend on boats are in this kind of cruise mode. It's either very slow in the beginning and the end of the rides, or they're in a kind of static cruise mode out on the sea. Very, very. It's such a small part of riding the boat is reaching these max speeds where you can reach those speeds today with an electric engine, and you can definitely not do it for a sustained amount of time. So if you were to max out your electric boat, you can only be out for a couple of hours or so. Whereas if you're into boating, maybe you want to go. I mean, for me in the archipelago, you want to go way out in the archipelago, maybe stay the night and then come back. You might need a petrol engine for that. So, I mean, a couple of things. One is that the experience is just superior, specifically if you're out like me riding the motorboat, because you want the nature experience. You're cruising among the islands, you're taking in the nature, you're looking at other people's houses, and you can do that while talking to your family at the same time, reflecting on what you see, etc. That's a game changer. My second point here is what you just mentioned. When the boats are exiting from the jetties and the docks and the marinas, it gives out this large noise, no matter how you think about it. And this is a major issue for the just the near environment. It's a big kind of sound pollution, depending on how you see it. Some people might see it as a romantic, wonderful thing to hear that engine start roaring, and I agree to that. But if you're like me living here, we have like 25 or 30 houses in this little bay that I'm living. It would be really nice if you can cut that noise away from this archipelago experience. So and I think what Volvo Penta and Groupe Beneteau are trying to show here is that there are these certain parts of the motorboating experience that can be replaced by electric, riding electric, and you will get that superior experience. But then when you're out on the open sea, you want that extra push, that extra roar, and then the sort of the traditional engine kicks in.
And that's kind of what it's all about. I'm not into boating myself, but when I've interviewed Anders Forslund at Heart Aerospace. I interviewed people that have electric boating, like the people over in Norway, up in the fjords, called Brim. They do these cruises, and all they say is like, you have to experience it. Imagine going on an airplane where it's completely quiet, or imagine going through the fjords when it's quiet. And I think that's what you kind of experience there. Because for me, usually riding a boat is not a pleasant experience. I'm kind of terrified, actually. It's loud. It's all these like techs and all these hard words and starboard and barboard and western. I don't know. It's really, it's a scary. It's a quite of a, not pretentious, but it's a very techy experience, and it's loud, and it's like you're in a machine, an open sea. This seems like it kind of takes that away. Maybe people are a bit more relaxed in a way.
I mean, for sure, that's a huge part of it. But adding to this kind of idea of the hybrid is also that, from a technical standpoint, I think it's important to note that there is a huge challenge with the friction of being on the ocean. It's a technical challenge. Whereas, with a car, you can kind of just swap it for an electric engine and it rolls down the streets or the highways. The resistance of the water is so huge, so it provides this enormous challenge where to be able to swap the traditional engine with an electric engine, have the same capacity, the batteries today needs to be so huge and so heavy that the effect of it kind of effectively goes away. And that's why they're exploring these kind of hybrid technologies. and that's also why Candela is exploring these hydrofoil technologies, effectively lifting the boat above the water, so you can get more out of the power that you have in the boat in terms of engine and energy. But it was very interesting to be at this event on the west coast. I visited the Krossholmen. It's a testing facility for Volvo Penta. I was there with a group of international boat journalists, which is also a very fascinating break from going to fashion and design events, which we do regularly. You've spent some time on these events, also visited with car journalists. We basically have the completely different questions. Boat and car journalists are talking a lot about the technicalities, and obviously from this podcast, we are not diving into that. And it was interesting to hear kind of these journalists and the insiders of the boat industry, their take on electrification, and specifically their take on kind of where startups like Xshore and Candela are going. I mean, they're kind of leaning back with their arm crossed, saying, "Okay, let's see how this goes." Obviously, Candela have this new type of technology. Basically, what people are saying, it will take years, maybe decades, for this to prove doable from a market standpoint. And that's also why I think we need to cover this development both from a techie startup innovator standpoint, which we love at Scandinavian Mind. But the fact of the matter is, startups like Xshore, like Candela, they are hugely dependent on VC money to fund their operations and helping them stay alive. There's a lot of talk about when is the product market fit? When will this come to fruition from a commercial standpoint? And if you're VC funded, you have a certain runway where you need to make this work, or else the money goes dry. Whereas a company like Volvo Penta or even Groupe Beneteau, the manufacturer, who has decades of experience and have an existing business model to lean on, they might have a different type of time perspective on things.
Yes, definitely. And I know we're gonna listen to the interview with him soon, but when I spoke to Johan Inden of Volvo Penta for the issue 4, he said something. It was a quote. He said, "Why does it feel like I'm stepping back 3 decades in tech history when I go to my boat from my Tesla? Boating has pretty much looked the same for decades." He kind of asked himself, like, why is that? So I can kind of understand why these journalists kind of lean back with their arms crossed. Maybe the boating industry has kind of, slowly just been on cruise mode for a while.
For sure. But it was fascinating to talk to Johan. As you know, you've interviewed him before. He is a very forward-leaning executive in the kind of working in this big traditional marine company. So, without further ado, I think we should just get into it. Here's my conversation with Johan Inden, president of Volvo Penta Marine, recorded at Krossholmen, the Volvo Penta testing facility in Sweden. Talk about why we are here today. And I've seen some of the innovations you've showed me, but describe the sort of news here from your side.
So there are many things where we are stretching our way of working with this event, in addition to showing new technology, and I'll come back to the technology. First of all, most of the things that you're testing here are in development, right? Specifically the hybrid vessel that we're talking about, that we're showing, that you've been out testing. That is in design right now, so it's not industrialized, it's not available to the general market as our products would be when they are ready. Instead, we are using this event both to talk about and socialize our ideas about it, but also gather input. So we're doing a 4-day activity where we are also bringing dealers, we're bringing end users, and we're using it kind of as a clinic to give input to us in order to balance the features, but also start looking at what's the product market fit. What type of product or boat would we place this in? Would it be a fast boat, more of a trawler style, or what type of experience is the clients looking for? So it helps us set our marketing strategy and finalize the technical development. On top of that, we're also showing some of our latest innovations, specifically then around docking and maneuvering a boat. We have since many years joystick-driven systems, which gives you kind of your boat at your fingertips, regardless if it's a 30-foot powerboat or it's a 100-foot yacht. Our system gives you a level of control that is very different to the traditional way of conducting a boat. And the good thing is that this is built on an electronic integration platform, which enables us to bring new innovations at a constant pace to the market. So we started out with a joystick as such. So how do you control your boat? Instead with levers and steering wheel, etc., you do it with the joystick. And then we've started building functions on top of it, like the dynamic positioning. You push a button and the boat holds itself in its position by an automatic feature, and it compensates for current, compensates for winds in automatic, gives you a level of comfort at sea, right? Then we continue the elevation towards assisted docking, helping you drive the boat in straight lanes as if you were on a highway with your car, with automatic compensation for wind and current. And now we're also kind of taking away the steering wheel and the throttles and integrating shifting and throttle in the joystick as such, giving a completely new level of driving experience. So this software-based innovation based on a hardware platform, which kind of dates a few years back now, is what we're also showcasing and trying to get input to. And all of this is part of what I think is our vision. My vision for boating is to increase the accessibility to the sea, or make it easier, simply. You should feel comfortable stepping out on a boat.
Yeah, I want to get back to that, because that opens up also for new target groups and new users for the boats.
Absolutely.
But before we get into that, we are also here to experience, kind of the state of electrification of boating. Can you describe kind of where you think we are in terms of electrifying the sea and electric boats?
That's a very good question, and we're on a journey, and typically people are looking for what's the pivotal time. Is it now? Is it tomorrow? When does it happen? My experience in technology development, I spent 10 years in venture capital before joining Volvo Penta, working with the fuel cell technology, battery technology, etc. And my learnings from that, of bringing new technology to the market, is it's always an evolution. And if you focus on, and if you fix yourself on exactly when does it happen, you miss the patterns, right? So for us, we built the first hybrids here roughly 10 years ago, or 8 or 9 years ago, starting to understand the platform. We've built full electric boats, we've built parallel hybrids, serial hybrids, to be a bit technical, and now we think they are at a stage where you can start putting them on the market. That's why we are running this event. The maturity level of technology is there. We believe that we can accommodate a sufficient number of use cases or ways of using your boat to start putting this on the market. We think the clients are ready. There is a strong push for sustainability. So that mix is getting interesting. I still think or see that there is more to do on the technology, specifically on the battery side. If I look at all the use cases or the way people use boats with a Volvo Penta driveline, we are still accommodating a fraction of that when we go full electric, for example. But for myself, I would love having a boat where I can go overnight staying in a full electric mode, because it gives also a number of different features that are on top of just the sustainability, so to say. So we're in the journey. It's destined to happen. It's a lot of hard work, and that's what we're doing right now.
Right. Well, I think one issue with electrifying the sea, which I think people should bear in mind when thinking about it, is, of course, I mean, it's easy to take to liken it with the car industry, but as you know, with a car, you can kind of switch out the gas tank and put in a battery, and switch out the engine and put in the combustion engine and put in an electrical engine. Yeah. With the boat, the battery weight of the battery actually has a significant kind of drawback in terms of how to use it. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't really agree on the weight of the battery. Maybe the size and the energy density.
Yeah, maybe you can explain better than I understand.
Because you need to kind of fit it in the boat. Yeah. Sadly. But if I take a step back, I think as an industry, as a marine industry, we are very good at explaining why it doesn't work so far. Yeah. Right. But you can only do this range, and you can only go this fast, right. and there is no charging solutions. Innovation is more about, okay, what can we do now to take the first step on the journey, or the second step of the journey? And I think the hybrid we're showing here, and what some has done on the market, like X-Shore and Candela, they're also along those lines. Okay, what can we do now? Because it's a step in the journey. And looking at the hybrid today, we've done a trade-off between the different use cases. You can accommodate the 3-hour full electric drive in 5-6 knots with the battery pack we have. You can dock in full electric mode. You have accessibility to all the joystick features that we would have in a regular driveline. You actually get even better performance because of the direct torque of the electric engine. So you start getting benefits from it as well. But then the hybrid setup gives you the versatility that boaters typically like. One day I want to go to the restaurant on the closest island. The second and third day I might want to go to a remote island and stay overnight, not in a harbor, but actually docking out out by the rocks only, and accommodate a silent night, not having to run my generator because I can pack so much energy in the battery. So our journey is very much about understanding where's the barrier of technology, what are the use cases we can cover now, show that that's possible, and that will unlock the next step. So I like to talk about what's possible.
That's a great perspective. I also like we talked earlier about kind of understanding these different types of use cases, and how important that is in developing new types of electrified products.
Exactly.
Because so the way I understood it was like, with the diesel-driven boats, you have this sort of really powerful engine, and you put it in the hands of people, and you don't really have to care about how they use it. They can use the full speed, which most people perhaps don't. They cruise around in the archipelago.
Exactly.
But with electrification, you have to be more kind of granular in terms of understanding the different types of use cases.
Exactly. You go kind of from the diesel engine or a gasoline engine is like one solution to many problems, or one solution to many use cases. Now you have to it's like mass consumption in a sense, right? Okay, this is the size of thing you get, and then you use it for everything. Now we have to be much more of bespoke tailors together with a boat builder. That's why we do this together with Beneteau, for example, one of our close customers. So you will design much more for the use case. If we would have a typical boat design that would always be used as a day boat and never travel long distances because it's set up more as a entertainment platform at sea rather than something you go distances with, you wouldn't have a problem doing that full electric. And you need to, and then you look at, well, we always bring the family, we always go to the next harbor, or we always want to dock in the nature harbor for a full week. Well, that's another use case. And between those, you'll find hundreds of different use cases. And I think boats will be designed even more for the specific use case that you do. A typical example is ski boats in the US. Many of them are designed just for the purpose of creating a perfect wake and being able to have to enjoy the platform whilst someone is surfing. Good music equipment, perfect wake, excellent use case. Not very useful for much other boating. I think it's an example of where you dedicate the product to a certain way of using it. And I think we need to get used to that whilst we do the transition and whilst technology gives us wider options. It's again back to this, what can we do so far? Take Another example is the commercial vessel, the tourist vessel we have operating up in Svalbard. That goes out of Longyearbyen, the capital of Svalbard, and it goes for roughly 45 minutes by regular propulsion out to a very nice area where you go watching for polar bears or walruses. You just enjoy it. It's fantastic up there. Then you go full electric cruising for 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours. You take away the noise, you take away the vibrations, you don't disturb in the same way. And then, as it is quite a distance back, you need to engage your regular propulsion. It wouldn't be possible to accommodate with full electric because it would be too much batteries and you would sink under the weight. So this is the way of doing it today with today's technology. Better batteries will accommodate it in the next step, etc. So it is tailoring and really understanding your technology and your modular platform and then building it for different use cases. And with every year that goes, we'll see battery development, we'll see development of alternative fuels, we see fuel cells coming, you will get more tools in the toolbox to accommodate the broader use case. That's really our job, is to understand that and build it.
A couple of things you've shown here today and we've talked about is the fact that technology kind of invites a new user, a new customer. With the joystick, it's easier to dock in crowded, harbors.
Exactly.
With the electrified boats, it's more, calmer. It's more quiet. You can enjoy nature from the boat in another way, which I think perhaps would attract a different type of user. And also kind of the technological maturity. I mean, boating as a kind of historically, it's a technical machine. Like, you have to understand, in order to use it.
Exactly.
And that kind of goes away with some of the things you've shown here today. Take that, combine it with the fact that which Groupe Beneteau, your partner here, talked about. Some 30% of boats sold are sold to new boaters. Okay, now we open up to a whole new type of target group for boating.
Yes.
How much do you know about that target group, and how can you service them better?
Well, I think first of all, you're absolutely right. We're kind of in disruptive times with the boater population of boaters, right? What I learned my experience coming into this industry some 9 years ago was that the average age of the boat owner is increasing with every year. It's a very technology focused world in one sense, right? In order to feel safe out in the ocean, you were probably brought up being your own mechanic on a boat engine, etc. To now we see much more of a disruption of who's buying a boat. COVID brought a completely different attention to having your private island, and I think that says something about where boating is going. We see people doing less distances but spend more time on the boat. So you go out, you spend the day on the boat and you go back rather than going distances, right? It's new people stepping into not doing their boating career from the traditional 20 foot, then buying your 27 foot, then your 35 foot, and then your 42 foot. You have clients walking straight into a 45 footer and saying, I want to go boating.
Right.
And then technology, like the joystick system, plays a major role in, first of all, decreasing the threshold of daring to get in there. But it also makes it possible for them not to be a boat engineer, so to say, and actually enjoy boating as part of a lifestyle, not your lifestyle. Right? And I think that really opens up a completely new buyer group, which I think is a necessary renovation, or not renovation is the wrong word, but vitalization of the boating population, or the population of boaters. Right. We shouldn't, just like with your car nowadays, you don't, at least I don't, go in and start thinking about all the different components and how they are working and why are they working together. I like a good driving experience. I'm like that with my boat as well. Even if I work with this, I like the good driving experience. I want to get out there and explore. That's why I go boating, not to understand how the pistons are working or how much is in the battery, etc.
Well, to that point, you've talked earlier today also about this, positioning kind of Volvo Penta as an enabler for experiences rather than a machine provider or
Exactly.
a tech provider and so
Yeah.
forth. Kind of putting you at least closer to the kind of lifestyle space. This also puts a greater sort of pressure on you to understand your consumer much more.
Absolutely.
So how are you working with surveying the consumer? Are you looking at other industries to understand the consumer? I'm curious to see how much data and intel you have about
it's a really good. First of all, you're drawing the exactly right conclusion. We need to reach through to the user in a more structured way than we've done. I think a strength in Volvo Penta is that if you work here or worked here when we go back in history, you kind of were drawn to this company because you were a boater. So it's kind of in the DNA of the company that everyone knew boating, and that's where many of the innovation comes from, the deep experience of being out at sea. That is not the case. That is not only the case nowadays, and because we need to bring in experience from the automotive industry, from different technologies, and with the possibilities we have, we need to reach through to the new type of. We are not ourselves necessarily the target group anymore. So this event is a good example. We're working with Beneteau because they have the reach to the end users, to the dealers, etc. And we're bringing in our experience from the truck side, which is part of the Volvo Group, where we have methods for how do you go out and interview the drivers of the trucks at the truck stops. And you break down their needs on everything from driving position to how long are they driving, what's the waiting times, what is the accommodation they want in the truck in order to be able to stay overnight. And that methodology of interviewing for structured influence in your development process is something that we are really taking on now. It's new for us, and it's exploration in itself to really understand that. And then we also are working with our connected services platform, where we typically, in our traditional business model, have sold the driveline to a boat manufacturer. And then as the marine world works, when the customer then has bought the boat and are out sailing and they need service, typically they look for the sign of your engine. So you look for the Volvo Penta service, and then the customer occurs again, does the service with us. But we want to be part of the entire life cycle. So launching our what we call Easy Connect and connected service platform gives us direct access to the end user as well, and we want to be part of the entire customer journey. But this is really a kind of a new avenue for us, and it's a really exciting one. It's a cultural change in the company as well.
I can imagine. We to go a little bit into the weeds of the tech. Maybe not as much as some of my boat journalists present here today. But you talked a lot about the user interface of your products. How much has that changed in the past years, and how important is that? Because that connection, the joystick and the screen and all that.
Exactly, and that's an important part of our business model. We call when we look at from a product perspective, we call our product being from prop to helm. So yes. we deliver the drive package and propeller package, the engine or propulsion system, the entire electronic architecture, as well as the helm stations. You can buy your displays from us, including then the throttle and the joystick, etc. And we've done quite some research over the last years on how do you build the effective helm station. So everything from how do you stand, how do you interact, what do you want to see, and what you want to see is really coming back to how do you design the graphical user interface. Yeah. And we realized that it's very different when you go from just a regular combustion engine, because then you monitor your RPMs, you monitor your cooling temperature, and then you have your navigation map. But when you go electric, and you monitor how much fuel you have, right? But when you go electric, you need to tend much more to the actual power consumption. What's the distance I can get with different levels of power? Because reducing 1 knot might extend the 10 nautical miles in your the destination you can go to, right?
Yeah.
So we need a different level of information that we're presenting, and that we're actually sitting right now in the room where for this event people can come and play a bit with the graphical user interface and say, hey, I'd like this information a bit more bold, but this is not interesting. So we're in the discovery phase of what the information should be presented then in a hybrid driveline for the user to feel that they're getting the right information and feel comfort at sea then.
Well, it feels like it's almost you're working in the area of UX design.
Definitely.
And we have several different boat brands here at your facility, but when you step into them, you have the joystick is yours and the screen, what you see on the screen is yours, so it's almost like what you're interacting with is Volvo Penta, even though the all the other bells and whistles can be another brand. So I'm wondering, do you need other types of designers, other types of engineers coming in and working on that you're coming from a traditional boating, combustion engine, mechanical stuff, that's the heritage. Now you're more into something that almost looks like an iPad or an iPhone screen.
Absolutely. No, but it's very true. And standing with the team here, the team with working with the GUI was graphical user interface was one person that we hired I think 4 or 5 years ago when we started. Now that team is 5 persons. We're continuously expanding it. We realize now, for example, with introducing throttle and shift in the joystick, that we move into ergonomics. Because then when you use the joystick just for docking, you typically stand up, you want to get the overview, you stand. But when you start driving with the joystick, you might want it integrated in the chair. You will start caring about the ergonomics of the drive station, which is something we have deeply embedded in the trucks business. So we're bringing that type of competence in here. And
well, just be clear here. We're talking about a scenario where we actually don't need a steering wheel anymore.
Exactly.
You can actually drive the boat with the joystick, and
you don't need a throttle either. So
exactly.
You can remove those two, and you got your joystick. Right?
So is that the future of boating, do you think?
That is definitely one of the chapters in the future of boating. Then it gives you you can start doing a different architecture, and we actually have customers, boat builders, who have launched boats that takes away the steering wheel. And if you move into a commercial boat, which is one of the sectors we supply to as well, it's typically the setup. Then for safety reasons, there is always a steering wheel. But on the commercial side, that is usually a small 1 decimeter diameter steering wheel with a knob on that you can turn quickly, which is then by safety reasons available, but not at all part of your actual interaction sphere as a driver. So definitely that's part of the future. And I think you experienced it today, right? It would be interesting to hear your reflection, but it gives a different, I think, relaxation in the way you can sit and you can conduct the vessel.
Well, the stress level going into dock is definitely the blood is not rushing in the same
exactly
same extent.
And it's possible, right? I promised you that during the day you would dock this 46-foot yacht, and you did, right?
We certainly did.
Yeah.
So to wrapping up, is there anything you think I missed, or what are you personally most excited about in the development that we're seeing the next few years?
But I like the entire perspective that we're taking, and I took to when I talked to our organization, but also the customer, that we're a technology company that builds the platform for integration and conducting a vessel in a good, safe way at sea. That's how I look at us. We're not a engine manufacturer or a propeller supplier or something. We're a technology platform. We work, for example, one of the companies we acquired a number of years back, worked closely with. It's called Humphrey. They do stabilization system, and then you can see our drive lines from prop to helm and the driver station, and then you start bringing in equipment for stabilizing the vessel, for waves, make sure it runs in the absolute best position for fuel consumption, and how the driveline then can start talking to this system. It becomes a technology platform at sea, which enables some great innovations on top of what we've already done. And I think that's a super interesting playground.
We haven't talked about it today, but I have to ask, isn't the next step to do your own boat? Is that in the pipeline?
No, it's not actually, and we're pretty firm on that. That's not our job. Our job is to enable great boat building. We have our in-house team of naval architects. They of course have their opinion, but with every boat builder we work with, we always calculate through the whole design to make sure that they get what they want from us. Mm-hmm. But we never actually take the step towards building. That's not for us. That's for someone else to do.
All right, that was Johan Inden, president of Volvo Penta Marine, recorded at Krossholmen, the Volvo Penta testing facility, a few weeks back when they were unveiling their new hybrid boating concepts. Erik, I think we're amiss if we don't mention the launch of our new beauty innovation newsletter this week. From mobility to another sector that's hugely important for us. So yesterday we unveiled the first edition of our Insights newsletter, Beauty Innovation. It was the top story of our regular newsletter, so people who follow us have probably seen the news. But again, if you're not if you're in the beauty industry, you want to learn about all the news about new technologies, innovations, and developments within the sustainability of the beauty industry, do follow our new Beauty Innovation newsletter. It will be free throughout the summer and then go into a paid mode after the summer. So take your chance. Visit scandinavianmind.com/beauty innovation. That's it for this week, and until next week, thank you.
Thank you. See ya.